Good evening, everyone. Welcome to City Hall Council Chambers for tonight's public hearing. It's October the 20th, 2016, and we have a pretty full agenda tonight for our public hearing with 5 items on the agenda and speakers registered for a number of those items. So we will call this meeting to order and ask Madam Clerk for the roll call, please.
Mayor Robertson is in the chair. Councillor Louise on a leave of absence. Councillor Stevenson. Here. Councillor Dion. Here. Councillor Jang. Here. Councillor Reimer is on a leave of absence. Councillor Meggs is in the chamber. Councillor Ball is not in the chamber. Councillor Carr. Here. And Councillor DeGenova. Councillor Affleck is on a leave of absence. You have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And first we'll acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and thankful for that. And our first order of business is with respect to Committee of the Whole. I'll just remind Council that earlier this year the City Clerk advised that it's not necessary for Council to sit as Committee of the Whole during a public hearing. However, in order to comply with the procedure bylaw, we do have to consider a motion to go into Committee of the Whole. And the advice is that we put that to a vote and do not pass it. So we have been doing this procedural step for some months now. I'll ask for a motion to go into committee and a seconder. Moved and seconded. And any in favor of going into Committee of the Whole, and are those opposed to going into committee? And all are opposed as usual, so we will sit in council. The motion does not carry. We will sit in council, which means all of our motions must be seconded. That's the procedural difference from here. And with that, I will just make some announcements for speakers, people who are here to address council tonight on the 5 items that we're considering on this agenda. Speakers, we will have potentially presentations from staff and questions to staff and applicants, and then we will go to the registered speakers list. Speakers have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report that's being considered by council. We do ask that speakers state whether they are in support of or oppose the recommendations before council. Speakers may speak once for up to 5 minutes. You don't have to use all of your 5 minutes. But if you have additional comments, you can put them in writing, either physically hand them to the clerk or email them to mayorandcouncil@vancouver.ca. There's a timer on the podium, and I will let you know as you approach your 5 minutes. You may have questions from councillors beyond your 5 minutes, so I'll let you know as you wrap up your comments on that front. And if you're speaking on behalf of 3 or more people or 3 or more organizations, you get an extra 3 minutes. We just ask that those people or organizations identify themselves here and are not speaking as well. And finally, if council does not conclude hearing from all the speakers this evening on all the items, we will recess and we'll reconvene this meeting on Tuesday, October the 25th, beginning at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. So we'll dive right into item number 1. That is rezoning for 920 East Hastings Street, Raycam Cooperative Community Center. Madam Clerk, can you please read the application and the summary of correspondence received?
This is an application by Binney Associates on behalf of the Provincial Rental Housing Corporation, BC Housing, and the New Chelsea Society to rezone the Raycam Cooperative Community Center site comprising 920 East Hastings Street and the northern portion of 400 Campbell Avenue to allow subdivision of the community center site from the Stamps Place social housing site. After rezoning and subdivision, BC Housing will own the community center site and the New Chelsea Housing Society will own the social housing site. No changes to the existing land uses or buildings on these sites are proposed as part of the application. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. Since referral to public hearing, Council has received no correspondence on this application.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we have Wesley Joe here, who is a planner with our downtown division, here to present the application. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Robertson, Councillor. I am Wesley Joe. I'm the rezoning plan for this application. I want to take this moment to introduce Roland Burchard, the applicant from Binning. There's also Ron Hansen and James Forsyth from BC Housing, as well as Stefan Bond from New Chelsea Society. This rezoning application is to provide zoning regulation for the Raycam site as noted as the red rectangle up there. That site consists of 6 zone M1 zone lots to the left of that half of the rectangle, and on the right-hand side is the northern portion of the CD1 existing site there. BC Housing recently sold the CD133 site to the New Chelsea Society. If this rezoning is successful, BC Housing will retain ownership of the Raycam site, where the Raycam Community Center would be fully on it, and then the CD133 will be amended with the north portion severed off, and New Chelsea Society will continue to be the ownership of that site. There are no new development or uses for this, these 2 sites as part of this application. Let's see. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability supports the proposed rezoning and recommends that this application be approved. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any question. And as I mentioned earlier, the representatives here are also available for questioning.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll ask the applicants, Roland Bircher of RF Binney and Associates and Ron Hansen and James Forsyth from BC Housing to speak to the application if they wish to, or we can just have questions. The applicants like to say any opening comments? Okay, so we'll go right to questions for staff and the applicants from council. Are there any questions from council? I have no one on the queue, so we can go right to the speakers list, and we'll do that with speaker number 1, Guy Wakeman, followed by Walker Wakeman. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking the time to hear us today. My name is Guy Wakeman. Just a quick bit on me here. I live in Stamps. I've been there with my 2 children for 4 years, and Raycam is just down the street from us. And I'm just going to give a bit of history quickly. Back in the day when this was built in the late 60s and the early 70s, there were a bunch of mothers called the Raymer Mothers that petitioned the city to have an overpass over the railroad tracks, and they ended up having to block the railroad tracks, and they got that overpass, and with that to a school on the other side. With that, they also noticed that there was no area for children to play and that kind of thing, so they petitioned the city again to have a community center built, and in the early 70s, Raycam was built, and basically Raycam is kind of like a living room to the community there at Stamps. Approximately 1,500 people live there. I want to say I am in support of this zoning change. I think the biggest thing here for us is we need to really make sure that, because in the future we're looking to rebuild Raycam, I sit on the board at Raycam as well, that there's enough space that's going to be allotted for us to build an adequate community center. It's busting at the seams, and it probably could have been rebuilt 20 years ago with the amount of use that it gets, and youth and families and whatnot in the community. And with Strathcona Village being built right across the street, approximately 1,000 people or so in the next few years that are going to move in there, and there needs to be a community center big enough to handle all these people. And one of the other points I want to make, and I'll be brief here, Raycam is also a disaster support hub. There are trailers that are set up so for disasters for that community, and with that many more people moving into the area, it's just that much more importance to make sure that the community center is adequate and all the services that are there. And that's all I have.
Okay, thanks very much for being here to speak.
Thank you.
On behalf of community, and we'll go to speaker number 2, Walker Wakeman, followed by Sean McEwen. Good evening.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for Raycam to be getting like new soccer equipment, sports equipment, fitness equipment with the rebuilding. And I like how the staff at Raycam know how to talk with kids and help one another. And it's important. It is important for jobs in the community, like coffee shops and stores, to be put in with the rebuilding. And because with Strathcona Village coming in, the building right across the street from Raycam, it would be nice to get Raycam expanded. And I'm excited for like all the seniors place, housing for families. That will be going on top if happens. And I want more space for game rooms, because right now at the community center, the game room is connected with like a sitting room, and then there's the computer labs right next to it. And yeah, so Raycam is really important to me, so I would like to see these changes. And yeah, and last but not least, ever since I moved in, Raycam has made a big change in my life. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you very much. You got questions, actually, from Councillor Carr first.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Wakeman, for coming. Is this the first time you've spoken to council?
Yes.
Well, you did extremely well. You were very clear in your presentation.
Thanks.
And you actually have left me with no questions, except for this is the first time that you spoke here. So thank you very much for coming and giving us your thoughts on this and support for the project.
Thank you for having me.
And you got questions from Councillor Deal, too.
Thanks for coming out tonight. Great job. When are you going to be on the board at Raycam? Just checking. Hopefully we'll have a new, we'll get the renovations before that. What's your favorite thing about the programming right now at Raycam? Because I know there's a lot that goes on there. You got a list there.
Like, the programming is just nice to have all that, what they have there.
And it's real close to home for you.
Yeah, like, I'm only like 30-second walk away.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much for being here and presenting to council. And our third speaker, Sean McEwen, followed by Pete Fry.
Thank you very much. Hello, Council, Mayor and Council. I'm the planning consultant for the Raycam Community Center Association, and I have a...
can you get your mic up a little closer?
I have some handouts from to pass out to you on behalf of the Raycam board. And this basically summarizes the work that we started, about 20 months ago. City Council gave a grant to the Raycam Community Association to do some preliminary planning to look at the potential for revisioning a new community center on the site. And we did some programming work and put together some design principles, looked at the potential of the site, and did a very high-level form and density type of study just to indicate what the development potential of the site would be, all in the context of the new downtown east side local area plan that indicated that there'd be considerable more development potential associated with the site. So we sat down with staff and set out a list of priorities for the sort of spatial complement of a new center, and brainstormed how big that would be, set out a number of objectives, and came up with a building area and a series of components for a new community center, and passed those along in March of 2015 to the city, hoping that there would be some type of assessment of the work that had been done. Well, things have been slow to develop, and I guess we've come now to a point where there's a subdivision plan and a rezoning that would basically substantiate or put into consistent kind of zoning the existing uses that are on the site. But we'd like to suggest that that there at this point, it seems absolutely opportune to do a so-called sober second look at what the implications of a new community center development on the site would be, just so that council and staff and the community is absolutely certain that what's being proposed here is going to be the optimum approach for looking at things in the future. And so at this point, we just respectfully suggest that the staff review the work that the community has done up to this point, and that they also provide some assurances that the 110-foot depth that is being created on the eastern portion of the site is going to be sufficient to accommodate the kind of program uses that that the community is putting forward. We really haven't had a chance to review these with staff whatsoever in any kind of formal way. We have a lot of ambitions for the project, including a really high level of energy utilization. So we're looking at trying to get certification under Passive House principles. And this means a lot thicker walls, which would mean, of course, smaller internal building areas and coincidentally a larger footprint for the building to accommodate the kind of uses. And that we have a number of ambitions for the interior planning of the site to try and minimize future staff requirements for casual surveillance of internal areas and such. What the site is suggesting is that this is a long and thin configuration for a building that's going to, essentially create some challenges in terms of staffing and surveillance and security for a new center. And there's also a very strong childcare component that's associated with the proposal, as well as community gardens and things. So there's a lot of ambitions for high quality open space, some of it at grade and some on rooftop levels. So that and because there's childcare, we have to look at drop-off areas at grade and the kinds of circulation aspects that are so important associated with the implementation and of childcare and the optimum operation of it. So we think that there has to be some work done to make sure that the zoning that's happening now isn't essentially going to preclude the sort of widest range of planning opportunity to create a new center there. And perhaps something coincident with this rezoning process, like a memorandum of understanding, might be considered with BC Housing in order to look at the coincident development of portions of the stamp site that are to the south or at the northeast corner of CD 133 and what's called the Raycam Community Center site. So we respectfully request that these items be looked at. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. McEwen. And Councillor Carr is first up with questions.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks so much, Mr. McEwen, for coming. So I just want to be perfectly clear or get a perfectly clear answer from you. Does this rezoning, so the separation of the site and the creation of a new site for Raycam, in your opinion, does it enable the kinds of plans that you are currently looking at and the Raycam board is currently looking at?
I think that it's a very challenging site configuration to develop, and I think the site depth actually will constrain the planning for a new community center considerably. And it would be, my suggestion is that there be some type of consideration made in order to create a deeper site to have more planning flexibility associated with a revision Raycam.
I can certainly ask staff that question at the end. Also, although this is just to rezone the site, it's not anything to do with an application at this point. It was interesting to hear your comments about the potential future application and the potential seeking of passive house certification. Just to alert you, I don't know if you're aware that under our renewables city sort of program and specifically zero emission buildings, we are looking at sort of public buildings that could be leaders in this. So I don't know if you've heard about that, but I would suggest you pursue that with staff. Here.
Oh, great. Yeah, I have heard a little about that, and I think it'd be an excellent opportunity for the RACAM Center to pursue.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, Councillor Deal, questions?
Thanks, Mr. McEwen, and I'm pretty sure you're pretty aware of a lot of the policy work that's done here at the city. Question though, I was looking at your drawings and hearing your comments. What it looks like right now is that the line is pretty much down to the existing housing. So I'm a little, are you wanting us to take into account that housing might be going away? Is that, I mean,
I think
right now it pushes right up against it.
Right. I think that there's an opportunity to, and I think you'll be looking at that in future years about the renewal of some of the housing on the stamp site. And I think that looking at replacement type housing for some of the stamps units on this RACAM site, because we are considering quite a dense mixed-use development, certainly in terms of what's being put in front of you today. There's an opportunity, given the new zoning through the local area plan, there's considerably new amounts of housing that are possible now on Hastings Street, and you can see it happening across the road.
Okay. I'm just concerned about BC Housing and the new Chelsea Society. That's a lot of moving pieces. And that's not before us, of course.
No, but I think that because you are considering a subdivision plan and a rezoning of the land, it would seem to me that some of these other aspects ought to be considered, just for the sake of reviewing them at this time to make sure that you're not boxing in future possibilities.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Councillor DeGenova, question.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen. I had a follow-up question from Councillor Deal. Deal's line of questioning, and one of your answers, you had mentioned that you would consider housing on the RACAM site. However, the community center itself, being that the relationship with the community center also was with Park Board, never before, in my knowledge, has the Park Board approved housing on a community center or a park site or park land. So as we kind of grapple with that, and although this isn't maybe itself considered green space, our community centers are protected in that way. I'm just wondering if you might be able to comment on that. Is that something that you'd like to see moving forward, or is that something that you're proposing? I think
your local area plan indicates that what's appropriate in the Hastings corridor is high-density mixed-use projects. And I think it's something to consider, having high-density housing on top of a community center, and you could have uses relating quite directly. Like part of this proposal, for instance, looks at a lot of low-income seniors housing in conjunction with an adult day center or a frail elderly center, a wellness center for seniors on the ground floor. So you have those kinds of critical mass relationships taking place that have a lot of, I think, advantages in terms of wellness delivery.
And again, you don't have to answer this question. I'm not sure if the mayor mentioned you don't have to answer any councillors' questions, but is this something that you have discussed or have taken to the Park Board at all?
We have discussed with Park Board planners these concepts, and I think there's some interest there.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all your questions. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
And next speaker is Pete Fry. He's followed by speaker number 5, Colleen Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to speak as a community organizer and a resident and a member of the RACAM renewal team. I'd like to acknowledge and thank city staff for the work that they've put into this rezoning, as well as the support that the city has given us by way of the Downtown Eastside Capital Grant. which has helped for the consultation and design of a new community center, complete with social housing, improved and upgraded amenities, and an activated Hastings Street. We've been really lucky to secure the services of Sean McEwen, and he's really helped us to develop and visualize an exciting draft proposal for the site. And it's a proposal that meets a lot of the objectives that we articulated in the Downtown Eastside Local Area Plan, like identifying and protecting social, recreational, and cultural assets in the neighborhood, and leveraging those opportunities for new assets through development. So as some of you will know, I did sit on the Downtown Eastside Local Area Planning Committee. As at the time I was in my role as the chair of the Strathcona Residents Association. One of the big issues that we identified then is that the public benefit strategy is heavily weighted towards much needed housing delivery, but to a degree it eclipses the funding of community amenities, which are also very needed. So because the plan anticipates, the Downtown Eastside Local Area Plan anticipates a significant increase in population, 10 to 12,000 new citizens over the next 30 years, we, and when I say we, it's the city, residents, and service providers, all agreed that both Strathcona and Raycam community centers would need to be renewed in order to accommodate that future growth, and it was articulated in the LAP. So with that said, it's imperative that we get the most bang for our buck and make the best use of our available space. That's why the lot depth is so important, and why we've come to you today to explain on public record exactly why that lot depth is important in order to achieve an efficient phased renewal of Raycam that also activates Hastings and meets our healthy city and greenest city strategy goals, in particular by ensuring viable retail spaces and accommodating passive house standards and build. I'd really like to thank Karen, and I hope I'm saying it, Karen Huze at Planning, who prepared this policy report and actually took the time to explain to me, and in turn I explained to Raycam, exactly what the statutory right-of-way means, because that's our big concern within the context of the lot depth. So the lot jags a little bit on the eastern side to the property lines at 120 feet with a statutory right-of-way for a lane that is proposed in here as an option that cuts us down by 10 feet, which really significantly compromises the kind of ideas that we've been coming up with. So we were quite concerned that that statutory right-of-way would compromise the plans. Ms. Huze has gone to great ends to assure us that the provision does not mandate an actual lane, but we really look forward to working with the city to ensure that that's not going to be a hindrance for us in the future, and that we're clearly anticipating how we can make the best use of this land and deliver the kind of stuff that we're looking for as a community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fry, Councillor Carr has questions.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Fry, for coming. And I really appreciate the information about the depth of the lot, the statutory right-of-way for the lane, et cetera. Now, in the discussions that you've had at Raycam, and this does not preclude any decision one way or the other in the future, but the statutory right-of-way is here. If it's to change in the future, that's a future process and decision. But there's two of you have talked about the need for more depth to the lot. Is it more depth beyond a statutory right-of-way, or if the statutory right-of-way?
Well, so Sean's initial planning had talked about 122-foot depth.
Right.
So we have 122 to the property line on the western half. On the eastern half, it's at 120, and that's because of the proximity to existing BC housing structures and building code offsets that are necessary. Now, I think maybe the 2 feet might not make that big a difference in the context, but I think losing 12 feet off that 122 would make a big difference, and that's where the concerns come in, particularly when we're talking about passive house, when we're talking about activating the retail space, and when we're talking about a phased rebuild, because we're talking about building a new gymnasium on that location, but not compromising the services that we provide people like young Walker here, and that we can keep those going, and that we can keep servicing the community as we do. So that's sort of the concern, that we can do it the best way and that we can really get the most efficient use of the space.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much for being here. And next up is Colleen Johnson, followed by Donald Berg, our last registered speaker.
Thank you for having me. My name is Colleen Johnson. I reside in Stamps Place as well. Been there 3 years. I'm also highly active within the Raycam Community Center. I am also a Board of Directors member. This is Kate Hodgins. She's the coordinator for Raycam. I would like to state that Raycam has played a major role in my life. I'm a single mother to 3 kids. It's saved me from going back to the reserve. It's helped me and my children to become more independent, and it helped me being in the poverty rate. It's helped me overcome some of the obstacles that I've faced within the life that I've had down here in the last 3 years. Raycam is a place for everyone. We've got a mixture of multiculturals within the center, right from the ages of infant up to seniors. All our programs are free. We have over 500,000 visitors per year, which I think therefore that we should be looking at expanding the center in order to provide the adequate amount of support that the downtown east side needs for the vulnerable / poverty people that live down that end. I would like to see more community center for space and more programs. Raycam has helped with my upgrading and schooling so I can create a career for myself to provide a better future for my children. They've helped my youngest within daycare. They've got after-school programs, evening programs, weekend programs that we all attend. Raycam has become our second home. We rely on the city partners to ensure proper operation. I think that we need to keep the needs of the community met, and we need to lower the rate of the wait list to get in for daycare or even getting the proper support that we need downtown. We work properly with all the partners. The community visioning works with the city staff. The Parks Board has met with us and is very much in support of the center with housing. I think that rezoning will help us provide more of a better future to expand the Raycam Center. Downtown East Side is expanding with costs going up and everything everywhere. And I think that downtown East Side would benefit from rezoning and creating a larger community center for people like myself to get more involved and get the proper support they need to get above and beyond the poverty line. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for being here to speak. Much appreciated. No questions. And next speaker, last registered speaker is Donald Berg. And then I'll call, see if there are any more speakers on our first item.
I'm Donald Berg from Waterfront Cooperative at 1033 Kiefer Street. We were the group that took the city to court, that took Raycam Center to court, and took it to groups here. We were the part of this Strathcona, which is now Strathcona, that was considered no place. Remember the big court hearing we had? And what came up about it? We have that open lot on the corner of Kiefer and Hastings, the very eastern end of the bridge. And it's been since 1976. We've been attempting to negotiate somebody with it. The hotel that burned in it and the food store that burned in it, which had 4 deaths in relationship to it, it's still never really been a part of Strathcona's history. The other one we have on it is on the Vernon Drive, right there in the corner, but it used to be a fire station. That was where Kiwassa was on until we got it moved to on Oxford and just the other side of there. All right, what I'm saying is on it, what we want you to do on it is take serious consideration. That big lot that is open space is divided only by the single track that we have 3 times a week with the West Coast Express. All the other train tracks have been removed. The other thing too that we got to done, we were the ones that were able to get the elbows and the screening in the rain, moved 9 inches over to each side. You can run electric wheelchairs up now, which was something that you could not do before 1975. What we want to do is we want to be, we still have the political things that are necessary to do it. And when we got the Women's Center and the, on Vernon Drive for abandoned young mothers, what that building was taken down, and with the housing that has been there since then, it came through our cooperative with a federal government grant. I would like to be able to see, we are, as a result of that court case in 1976, a part of Strathcona, but we have still had the political difficulty of being accepted by it. Because SPOTA, Strathcona Property Owners and Tenants Association, said the west side of Campbell Avenue is where the Strathcona property ended. I said, well, and Harry Rankin was our lawyer. He says, well, between here and on Clark Drive, what is that? Well, the statement was made, they didn't know. Well, then how come you're judging that it's not? We had a whole week's examination of that by the Planning Commission. We are Strathcona. What we want to do, as honor, is to be included in this decision about some of the things we really want to do. I am supportive of anything that is going to take us to where we can have a greater participation in the community than what we have had up to now. I want the Raycam Center to be really, it wasn't really built there like I wanted it originally, but that was what the city said, that's all they could get with the government money we had. We have 11 out of those 13 houses that we have, and they're all new. They look like they were made in about 1920. Those are all brand new. And when we had Expo 86 here, we got the permit to open them all. We got a federal government grant to fill that empty space that was there with housing. And then we're doing it. What we want to do is to get that lot on the corner of Hastings and the other Hastings and Cambry Street there. It's Hastings, where sometimes it's called one street, it's another, because it hasn't been really defined yet. But that where that hotel burnt and where that food store burnt, that land is still sitting there, and it's being divided by the one track. It used to be 4 tracks. It's now only got 1 for the West Coast Express. You could come up the expansion of that overpass and come back to 1 block. And you would have full access to it for housing, you'd have full access to it and all. Because that's what we had originally and planned, but it never got that far because either not funding or other things that were necessary to get it. I'm happy to see that people are concerned with housing, number 1, and access to various operations in this community, which are only on a limited basis. That I would like to see changed and brought about this year. We have that land there. It's not been used, and we want it to be used. We want it to be used for something in the city. And I think we've got the greatest opportunity in this world because it's been sitting vacant with all kinds of growth on it. And then Jimmy Patterson put that big advertising sign on it in the middle of the lot, just above by the street in the middle of the bridge. We say that that land is available to this community. It is Raycam Center. It's opportunity to expand by going across the overpass and come onto it. It's there. It hasn't been used since the big fire.
Okay.
And I would like it to be used for something. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You got questions from Councillor Carr.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to verify you are supportive of this.
Definitely.
All right.
I'm on the board. I speak Russian. I'm on the council for the Russian Center, which is surrounded by.
It appears that what you're talking about is something different than this, but I encourage you to contact me after the meeting later, and we'll talk over your specific issue.
Fine. That's fine. At least this is the first time I've seen yet that when we got that home for abandoned mothers, and what used to be in the fire station, we were kind of looked at. What would you know about what abandoned mothers are? I said, just live in the neighborhood. What is here? And when we got that permission to do it from the federal grant, we did it. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for being here, Mr. Berg. So we'll call 3 times, as is our practice, if there are any other speakers here. Any other speakers here for item number 1? I got a tower in between me and some of you folks. Any more speakers for item number 1? Last call. Any speakers for item number 1? You want to speak to number 1? Yeah, step right up. You can give us your name for the public record. That's great.
Good evening. My name is Majid Alemi Jr., and I'm also a board of director for Rekem Community Center. I lived in that area for almost 25 years. And it's just, Rekem is opposite my apartment, which is in a STEM place. Was a BC Housing, now New Chelsea, running the place. Anyway, I studied the new rezoning building, which it is amazing, and it's good that we should have expanded that building. It has to be built there to help the community, because the community is increasing now. And also we have so many immigrants coming to that area. So I have supported the new building to be built there, and we should have swimming pools and so many programs that will be among the building that I've seen that has to be rebuilt. And this is what I have to say. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. No questions for you.
Thank you.
Thanks for stepping up to speak. And last call, any more speakers for item number 1? Okay, we've none seen, so we'll close the speakers list. And as we've had very few or no comments since 5 p.m., we'll close the public comment period, and we'll go to closing comments from staff and applicants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, Karen Huza, I'm the Acting Assistant Director of Planning for the Downtown. I just wanted to make a few comments, just to reiterate that this rezoning is just to allow a subdivision of the site. As part of the subdivision, it allows for a future lane. Until we actually have a proposed form of development for the Raycam site, we won't know if that lane is needed or not. So we'll be working with Raycam and others in the future as that comes forward.
Okay, thank you. And any closing comments from the applicant team? No, we're good. We'll go to questions then. Closing comments from council. Councillor Carr.
Yes, thanks, Ms. Huza. You actually are addressed exactly the question that I have, which is about the lane. I notice on diagram 1 in Appendix B, it has the lane outlined. And so right now, I'm just I'm seeking your response on this. Is it that you must leave that lane in there until a redevelopment application? Or is it possible to include the lane in the actual subdivision at this point?
At this point, it's an option to purchase in the conditions of approval in Appendix B. It actually outlines the option.
The option to purchase, and that would be the option to purchase for either Lot 1 or Lot 2?
We would need... I'm sorry. Michael, do you want to answer?
Michael Naylor, Senior Rezoning Planner for Downtown. What the lane is right now is it would be an option to purchase registered on the title. And so if the city decides in the future that we do need the lane, then we can exercise that option and get it. So the lane won't actually be dedicated with the subdivision. It'll only be an option to purchase registered on the title of the lands.
It's an option to purchase for the city to purchase?
Yeah, that's what it's called. And it would be for $1. It's a nominal thing.
Got it.
And that's the document that gets registered on the title.
Right. And is it possible at that point for the city to purchase it for whatever sum, $1 sounds good to me, and then include it in as part of a rezoning application that might come forward from Raycam?
Well, the decision as to whether the city needs it is going to depend on what form of development is proposed for the Raycam site.
Right, right.
So if it's needed, then the city will exercise the option.
Right. And if it's not, and if it's needed by...
If it's not needed, then we just have the property line.
Got it.
And if we decide we don't need it, we can take the documents off the title then.
Right. And you're in discussion with the Raycam board about this, are you? No? In discussion, or you've had this kind of discussion with the Raycam board?
Yeah, it's, well, certainly with the applicant.
Oh, with the applicant,
The
which is
consultant
BC
who
Hydro.
represents the property owners. But
Right.
I believe that Wesley Joe has had conversations.
Right.
Yeah, I have spoken to staff at Raycam about the lane.
Yes.
It is not dedication or required at this point, and depends on future development.
Right. Okay. So if their plans look like they would be furthered by the addition of the 10-foot lane, that's the point at which, when they submit the plans, that's the point at which there would be a discussion about the purchase of the lane and inclusion in that lot.
That's correct.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Deal, questions?
Yep, so what I've heard is that there's nothing here tonight that would preclude some of the aspirations that we've heard about tonight. That's okay.
No, none.
Okay,
Nothing at
great.
all.
Then in that case, seeing no other questioners on the queue, I would move the application, remove the recommendations, and congratulate the community for their great proactive lobbying for a new community center, and thank the staff for their work on this file. And thanks for coming out to speak, all of you.
Okay, I need a seconder for that. Councillor Carr. Councillor Carr to the motion.
Great, thank you. Yes, happy to second this. And I think it's very exciting to think about the plans that are being developed by Raycam Community Center, and it looks like those plans and the aspiration to make sure the site is sufficiently deep to enable the kinds of plans that are being discussed is a possibility, and staff are fully aware of that. So I'm quite excited about upcoming plans being submitted as an application for rezoning. But I know that's in the future, but this enables it. So well done, everyone.
Thank you. Councillor DeGenova.
I just also wanted to speak in support and thank everyone who came out tonight and took the time to speak. I'd also like to thank staff. I'd like to thank the applicant, the New Chelsea Society, and BC Housing. Just yesterday in council, we were speaking about the importance of investment in all of our communities, but especially in the areas of the downtown east side. And I think that this is the first step. Often I hear from the public that something happens all at once, and we're not looking at things sort of progressively in a way that we can possibly maybe, consider zoning a site and then considering what's going to be going on that site. So I find that this is perfectly in line with what I've heard the public wants, and I see great potential and opportunities for the site. So I'd like to thank the applicant for bringing this forward. Also, BC Housing for the collaborative approach on this in bringing things together, and I will certainly be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all we have for speakers and thank yous, of which many are due to everyone in this room and well beyond into the community. So we'll go to a vote. Council on the motion. Okay, we have 8 votes, unanimous support for the recommendations. So we have approved on item number 1. Thanks everyone again for all the good work, and good luck with next steps. Lots more to do ahead. We'll look forward to that ongoing partnership, particularly with community center renewal at Raycam. So thanks all for coming on that one. We are going to move on to item number 2, which is the rezoning 305 West 41st Avenue, the Oakridge United Church. Madam Clerk, can you please read the application and summary of correspondence received?
This is an application by ZGF Cotter Architects, Inc. to rezone 305 West 41st Avenue, Oakridge United Church, from RS1 to CD1 district to permit the development of a 6-story mixed-use building with church use at grade containing 49 dwelling units, a height of 20.7 meters, and an FSR of 2.91 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. Since referral to public hearing, Council has received 4 pieces of correspondence in support of the application, 1 piece of correspondence in opposition to the application, 1 piece of correspondence in the other category, and this represents all correspondence received up to approximately 4 p.m. today.
All right, thank you very much. And we have Cynthia Lau here, who is our planner for Vancouver South Division, to present the application. And we actually have no speakers. We had a couple speakers registered, but they're part of the applicant team, as it turns out. So they'll have an opportunity to say some words. So I don't know if council wants a presentation on this, given we have lots of other speakers here tonight. So we can waive the presentation. Anything, Ms. Lau? Anything in terms of opening comments before we go to the applicant team? Okay. Applicant team is next up in terms of opening comments. Patrick Cotter of ZGF Cotter Architects, Marcy Chan Yip of PMG Landscape Architects, Terry Harrison, United Church of Canada, Steve Jedrejcic of Town Line, sort of. Sorry about that. Lillian Hunt, Reverend Neil McRae, all part of the applicant team. Would you like to make some opening comments?
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the mayor, to the council. My name is Lillian Hunt, and I'm part of the Oakridge United congregation and part of the interim steering committee, which has worked on this project. I want to speak favorably in regards to the motion because it helps us to facilitate a new life in this new building that we're going to be moving into. I want to thank our town line. I want to thank our BC property redevelopment for taking and working ethically with us in a very unusual situation we found ourselves in. We had nothing but support. I feel that in the community, we will be able to be a viable and visible presence again. Excuse me. When you're not trying to sustain a building for furnaces or roofs, you do not have as much time to do what we've been able to do in the past, which is to offer refugee support or to be able to go into the community and do any more advocacy other than direct some of the people that come to our door to First United or to the Wilson Heights where they do advocacy. This development will allow us the ability to be a more visible and viable force. It is going to be on one level, which means it will be accessible for everyone. Some of our members of our congregation and some of the members of the public cannot always have equal access to our buildings, and now it will be able to take place. I just feel that this is something that will benefit the community, will benefit our church family, and the broader church as well, because it will help us to be able to concentrate on mission instead of sustainability for, like I said, the furnace or the roof. Anyway, I want to say thank you to the council and thank you for the planners for working with the development team to dot all the I's, cross all the T's to make sure that we will be a visible presence. Our stained glass will be visible. We will be a church presence. And I hope we will be welcoming to the whole community. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for those opening comments. Council, you have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and the applicants. Anyone wish to ask a question? Councillor Ball?
Yes, I suppose, I'm sorry that you sat down. Perhaps I could ask the last speaker the question, or staff can answer. How long has this actual proposal been working? How long has it taken you to get to this stage? Because I understand there must be a lot of complexity in working this kind of a project.
For the congregation, we did a discernment over 2 or 3 years. We actually started meeting the process with the BC Conference, property redevelopment team in probably the beginning of 2012. We have worked actively as a community in that time, but when you're a congregation that has had a lot of history of being there, we love our sanctuary, we're attached to it, but as I was saying before, it was not viable or sustainable because $4,000 or $6,000 just to get our furnace fixed was getting a little bit too pricey for us. So we've been doing this process. We had to engage the congregation to make sure that they felt comfortable with the decision making and that everyone's, that we would be able to stay together and put a plan in place, not only for us, but to honor the legacy of all the congregations that have been involved in, because we're amalgamated. We have about 125 years of history from United Church on both sides of the amalgamation. And we always had a mission, like I said, for the refugees and for helping people in the community. So it was not a quick decision. We had to do a lot of soul searching, planning. We have a mission statement and a vision. We had to make sure that all those things were met. So I'm sorry I went a little long on that.
No, it's actually very helpful because it lets us know about the community and the kind of support you got. Do you mind just explaining the word discernment for those who might not know its meaning?
Discernment means that we get to, you have a meeting or a sequence of meetings where you discuss your goals, your, it's by consensus. It has to be acceptable to everyone. Mm-hmm. All feelings have to be heard. All ideas, all the wishes have to be respected. Mm-hmm. And that's what discernment is. Is this the right decision that we want to make? Is it financially responsible in accordance with what the United Church of Canada would want us to do, being responsible for our property? And that's basically what the discernment is. Is it a decision we can live with? Because a lot of people are very attached to our building and our sanctuary. And so it was a big responsibility to make sure that everyone was, pardon the expression, was on board to make sure that their wishes would be honored and respected.
It's very helpful to hear because we're hearing about a lot of churches looking at their property and looking to, developing housing. And it's interesting to hear your process and that I think will help it be successful. So thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Okay, that's all your questions. That's all the questions for council. I'll call 3 times, see if there are any speakers here for item number 2. Are there any speakers here for item number 2? Last call. Any speakers here for item number 2? Seeing none, we'll close our speakers list. And as we've had little or no feedback since 5 p.m. Correspondence-wise, we'll close public comments and we will move on to any closing comments from staff first.
We have no comments.
No comments. Any final comments from the applicants? No, we're good to go. Okay. Any final questions? Councillor DiGenova, questions?
No, I was prepared to move the motion. I didn't see anyone on the queue for questions.
Okay, why don't you go ahead?
I'd like to move the motion, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Ball because she asked many of the questions that I was, a few questions of the speaker that I was planning on asking. I understand from the report, and I'd very much like to thank staff for this, that this has been a collaboration certainly between the church, and as we look forward to sort of collaborations between nonprofit groups or groups that serve the community in providing services and housing for people in the city of Vancouver, I think that it's very important that we continue to move forward with those types of collaborations. So for those reasons, I certainly will support this and pleased to move the motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. And any more speakers to that motion? I will just echo my big thanks for everyone that's worked on this and the partnership between the applicants and staff to bring it forward without much friction. I'm sure it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but it's refreshing to have projects come forward with this smoothly. So we'll go right to the vote. How about that? Council can vote on the motion recommendations. Councillor Meggs, are you, there we go. All right, 8 votes, all in favor, unanimous support. Thanks everyone again for all the work. Congratulations and good luck with your next steps. And we are done with item number 2. Moving right along. So we've got item number 3 next, rezoning 512 West King Edward Avenue. Madam Clerk, can you please read the application and the summary of correspondence received?
This is an application by Arno Mattis Architecture to rezone 512 West King Edward Avenue from RS1 District to CD1 District to permit the development of a 6-story residential building containing 50 secured market rental housing units. A height of 20.7 meters and an FSR of 3.00 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. Since referral to public hearing, Council has received 7 pieces of correspondence in support of the application and 2 pieces of correspondence in opposition to the application. And this represents all correspondence received up to approximately 4 p.m. today.
Okay, thanks, Madam Clerk. And we have Zach Bennett here, planner for the Vancouver South Division, to present the application. We don't have any speakers registered for this one, so why don't we waive the presentation and move to questions or the applicants as well, unless there are any comments off the top.
There were a few questions to staff at the time of referral, which I could address quite quickly.
Okay.
Could I have the presentation, please? So at the time of referral, Council asked staff about whether data collection and analysis have been performed relating to the provision of sufficient parking on site. Metro Vancouver has performed a recent apartment parking study which found that vehicle ownership in rental buildings was approximately 35% less than in strata buildings. The same study found that vehicle ownership in rental buildings near rapid transit stations was approximately 30% less than the rental buildings that were merely close to bus routes. Furthermore, recent data collected from rental buildings near Joyce Station suggests that vehicle ownership there could be as low as 0.5 vehicles per unit. Joyce Station is a transit-rich area served by a number of local bus lines and a SkyTrain station. The applicant for 512 West King Edward has proposed 37 vehicle spaces on site, equivalent to 0.74 spaces per unit. This provision exceeds the parking bylaw requirements for secured market rental housing within 2 blocks of a rapid transit station. Staff further note that the site is extremely well served by public transit with 3 bus routes, a night bus route, and the King Edward Canada Line station directly across the street. A second question put to staff at the time of referral asked about the proximity of the proposed building and the neighboring building to the south. While staff note that there is no specified minimum side yard setback in the Canby Corridor Plan, other approved applications have provided side yard setbacks ranging from 7 to 12 feet. This application proposes a setback of 8 feet from the south property line. When considered with the approved form of development for the neighboring site, there is an expectation of a 20-foot separation between the buildings, consistent with other approved Canby Corridor applications. Staff have also recommended a condition of approval to provide design development to mitigate privacy and overlook toward nearby residential units. Finally, at the time of referral, Council also asked staff for clarification about public benefits in relation to secured market rental housing and for clarification of the rental incentives sought for this site. The Canby Corridor Plan provides the guidance on built form, including height and density, and the applicant has voluntarily sought to achieve secured rental housing in this proposal. As a secured market rental proposal, the application qualifies for the reduced on-site parking requirement within the parking bylaw for secured market rental housing. Additionally, a pro forma review conducted by staff determined that this project would not achieve the DCL waiver under the rental incentive guidelines. This review also found that while no cash CAC is anticipated for this site, the achievement of 50 secured market rental housing units is considered to be a public benefit and contributes to the goals of the city's housing and homelessness strategy. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll ask if the applicant team Sounds like Arno Mattis and Paul Kibiyashi, both of Arno Mattis Architecture, are here. If you wish to speak to the application. Okay, we'll go to questions to staff and the applicants. Councillor Ball.
Yes, I just have a question that has come from the neighborhood around because there's such a dense building happening right now in that very area. The neighbors within 2 to 3 blocks around are finding it very difficult with parking because there are enormous numbers of construction workers who are obviously have to build, and the parking is an issue for them. So I'm wondering, are we looking at a plan to deal with all of the workers who are on site within that 1 to 3 block area all at the same time? Because it's something that the neighbors have asked me. They said, oh, another one, what are we going to do? So if there could be some plan sought, something clever even on the larger sites where part of it is retained for parking for until they actually need that area. But I can tell you that right now there is a lot of coffee talk about this issue, and it wouldn't be nice to come back with an answer. So if you have one or can come back with one, that would be very helpful.
I'll refer that question to our engineering colleagues.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors and mayor. John Tarecki with Transportation. So there's no specific requirement for a traffic management plan for the construction of a lot of these units. Workers are not supposed to be parking on residential streets. That's why we have the 3-hour bylaw that you can actually get ticketed if you're parking for a long period of time on a private residential street. So that's something that they should be providing on site or finding a way to mitigate those impacts themselves.
When we have about 10 to 12 buildings going up at the same time, we're not looking at some plan to ameliorate the issue?
At this point, it's not something that we've been considering.
You might want to look at it. Certainly, I know you'll hear from my neighbors, so it would be great if we can look at that at some point, because we're not going to stop building in that area and almost everything's going down. So it would be nice to have some sane way of people being able to leave their homes and not be afraid to come back, especially the seniors that are living there.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, that is all the questions for staff, and that means we go to calling for speakers. There's no registered speakers for this one, so I'll call 3 times. Are there any speakers here for item number 3? This rezoning at Cambie and King Ed. Any speakers here for item number 3? Last calls. Any speakers for item number 3? Okay, no takers. Seeing none, we will close the speakers list. And as we've had little or no correspondence since 5 p.m., we'll close public comments and go to closing comments from staff. Anything to add? Any closing comments from the applicant team? No. Any final questions? Councillor Carr, did you have questions?
No, actually, I was just prepared to move it and to comment on the answers to my questions.
Okay, go right ahead. We need a seconder. Okay, moved by
Yes, thank you. I just particularly, Mr. Mayor, want to appreciate and thank staff for the responses to the questions. I found it very interesting, especially the analysis regarding a justification for the reduced parking and the data around the rental buildings and close to vehicle stations. So thank you for that, as well as the responses around the community amenity contributions and the proximity to other buildings and how that is playing out within the Cambie corridor. So I'm happy to see this rental building going forward within the corridor.
Okay, and I have no more speakers, so we will go right to a vote on this one. On a rapid pace here. Councillor DiGenova, are you voting? Okay, we have 8 votes, unanimous support for the motion, moving the recommendations. So that rezoning has been approved. Thanks to the applicants and staff for the good work done on that front, and to the community for input earlier stages. And we're on to item number 4, rezoning for 725 to 747 Southeast Marine Drive.
This is an application by Sarah Holdings, number 2 LTD, to amend CD 121 Comprehensive Development District for 725-747 Southeast Marine Drive to permit the development of a mixed-use development with 368 dwelling units, commercial uses, a childcare facility, and a neighborhood house annex. A height of 63.1 meters and a floor space ratio of 3.98 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. Since referral to public hearing, Council has received 9 pieces of correspondence in support of the application, and this represents all correspondence received up to approximately 4 p.m. today.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Madam Clerk. And we got Cynthia Lau still here as our planner from Vancouver South to present the application. We have 4 speakers registered right now, and so perhaps a short presentation or any response to the questions posed.
There are a number of questions posed by Council during referral, and I'll include those in my presentation. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of Council. The application before you proposes to amend the zoning for the site at 725 to 747 Southeast Marine Drive, located on the northeast corner of Southeast Marine Drive and Fraser Street. This site is 1.77 acres and is currently developed with a recently closed 6-story Super 8 hotel, along with a liquor store, pub, and bowling alley. The site is across from local serving commercial along Fraser Street. To the north are parcel zone RT2. To the east of the site are RS1 sites with detached housing. To the south is the South Vancouver industrial area, and the subject site is at the crossroads of major arterials with bus service along Marine Drive and Fraser Street. In March 2015, Council provided direction for staff to conduct an enhanced planning and engagement process to consider a rezoning for the site. Draft planning and development principles were endorsed by Council for further public consultation to guide the development and review of a site-specific rezoning for this. As part of the inquiry process, public and neighborhood meetings were held with local community groups and adjacent residents. Following consideration of the March 2015 staff report, staff sought public feedback on draft planning and development principles, as well as several conceptual design options, and with the most support for option 3, which has the open space open to the neighborhood to the north and density and height focused along Marine Drive, which evolved further into the proposal that we're reviewing tonight. The proposal before you includes 368 residential units and 4 buildings ranging from 6 to 12 stories, 27,000 square meters of commercial space, a child care facility, neighborhood house annex, as well as a public open space with a total density of 3.98. Vehicle and bicycle parking spaces are proposed to be accessed at the north end of the site from Fraser Street. At grade pickup and drop-off and loading are proposed to be handled on the site from Chester Street, which would alleviate potential on-street parking pressures in the neighborhood. At referral, Council requested further information on congestion in the area. This table indicates that the existing afternoon peak traffic per hour, along with the estimated impact of this development. Along Marine Drive, the project would increase traffic by about 2%, which is not deemed to be a significant impact on the congestion in the area. Council also requested that shadow studies be included in the presentation. Before you are the estimated shadows for the spring and fall equinoxes. The proposed development would be a significant change to the neighborhood. However, the majority of the shadows would fall on the site itself. Staff have reviewed the shadow studies, and the public open space would be in sunlight at key times of the day, and the impact to adjacent residential would be minimal. The proposal includes a number of public benefits, particularly the co-located 37-space childcare facility and neighborhood house annex, which would be deeded to the city and would serve as a local community hub. This area of the city has a very high need for childcare spaces as well as community and family services. Co-location offers a number of advantages, both in operation and efficient use of the space. The applicant has also offered to construct and maintain public open space at the center of the site, which will be secured in perpetuity by a statutory right-of-way for the use and enjoyment of residents in the community. The enhanced porosity of the site serves to greatly improve the integration of the park-like courtyard with the surrounding neighborhood. An open house was held for this application in February 2016, and general support was indicated for the proposal with comments indicating that redevelopment would significantly improve the existing site, and concerns raised included traffic in the surrounding neighborhood, off-street parking provision, and commercial uses, as well as the height and density of the proposal. In response, staff have recommended design development conditions that would provide better transition between the proposed building massing and the residential development to the north. At referral, council asked about plans for the existing liquor licenses, and there are 2 licenses on site, one for a private liquor store and one for a pub. Staff have evaluated policy and guidelines and support the retention of the licenses on the site, and staff have also consulted with the South Van Neighborhood House, which is the intended operator for the community services, and they have no concerns regarding the liquor licenses. A variety of commercial uses would also be permitted in this development and would contribute to the retail viability of the area and the neighborhood vibrancy. So in conclusion, staff support this application for a mixed-use development that would enable a diversity of housing, amenities, and services that would enhance this neighborhood hub. The proposed form of development is an appropriate response to the site and its context, as well as consistent with the development principles. So, Mr. Mayor, the General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval of this application subject to conditions of approval should the project move forward to a development permit review. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that presentation, and we'll ask if any of the applicant team wishes to speak, give opening comments prior to questions and hearing from speakers. Anyone from the applicant team? We're all good? We're good, okay. So any questions for council to staff or the applicants? No one's on the queue, so we'll go right to speakers. And the first speaker registered is Paul Biesla from Khalsa Diwan Society, followed by Dal Mahal. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Your Worship and respected councillors. I live in the neighborhood. Not only that, I work in the neighborhood. I'm a city bus driver, so I get an opportunity to, live in a bubble sometimes, as I say. I also volunteer at the local Sikh temple. This site falls exactly halfway from my home to where I volunteer. And I've been in that neighborhood for 33 and a half years, most of my life. And I've had an opportunity to see the state that it was in, the particular site, and the state it is in now. And I welcome this new development because it really has, no pun intended, but it has gone downhill. South Slope. And so I welcome this development. I've seen the renderings, I've been to the open houses, and I've been well informed. And I really, really want to see this project go up, along with the amenities that have been recommended by the city. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. You got questions before you go, if Councillor Deal has questions?
Mr. Biesla, over here. Just a quick question for you. What kind of retail would you like to see on site?
You want it to be like a kind of like a social hub. I understand that the bar that was there was that, again, past tense. It was a place where people could congregate, but you need something more contemporary, more modern, and something that appeals to not just the night crowd, but the day crowd. So coffee shops, other services, grocery stores, things like that. And as with any growing or densification, you need services for families and growing families. So childcare facilities are a brilliant idea. Makes sense. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Any more questions?
That's all your questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Biesla. And next speaker is Dal Mahal, followed by Angie Au.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry. My name is Dal. My family immigrated to Canada in 1981. We settled in South Slope. I've been living, not in the same home, but the general area for the past 30, I want to say a few years, but 35 years now. Oh, you need your eyes checked, sir. But again, I've been living there for about 36 years now. Everybody knows about the boom with the real estate market. My family chose not to sell our home for a ridiculous amount of money, and
move somewhere else. We love the area. I have a young daughter as well, and we're choosing to raise her in the area as well. So it's more than just, it's just more than a neighborhood to us. It's, it's our legacy in itself. I am in favor of the new proposal, the proposal for the new development. Like Mr. Biza said, the area we've seen its change in the area over the past few decades, and what it was is, it's been reduced to memories for a lot of people with the Blue Boy and just how, how the area used to be and currently the state it's in now. We're actually glad that there is somebody that stepped up to the plate and does want to, ignite the area, just put some energy back into it, because it seems like a lot of the focus has been on the Cambie corridor lately. So, I'm really glad to see somebody stepping up to the plate, because I've heard that the property has changed hands quite a few times over the past few years, and nobody else has really gone to bat for the area themselves. And again, I'm a product of a single mother. I love the fact that, there will be a daycare area for, children, single mothers, single fathers, whatever it may be. And again, living in that area, I've seen where a lot of the families moved out in the early 2000s, but there's been a huge influx of families moved back into the area. And again, I used to work at and volunteer at Sunset Community Center, which is in the area as well, for about 10 years. Yeah, I guess that's it. Are there any questions?
Okay. No questions for you. Thank you for being here, though. Angie Au is next speaker, followed by Charlotte Hayes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Angie. I am in support of the redevelopment on Fraser and Marine. I currently reside at 957 East 62nd, which is just a few minutes walk with my young daughter and husband. And we're really looking forward to the redevelopment of the area. The current Super 8 motel is such an eyesore. So with the new development, I believe it will really enhance our community and add value to our area. It's exciting to hear that there will be commercial shops that we can walk to together, and also a daycare option for my current 1-year-old daughter. It's definitely refreshing, and we're looking forward to seeing what this new development will bring to the area. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for being here. No questions for you. And next up is Charlotte Hayes, our last registered speaker.
Hi.
Good evening.
I love this development, especially since being a young family. I have a son, and we currently live in a 1-bedroom plus den, and are experiencing a lot of difficulty finding a place to live. And we have a community in the East Van, sort of Main Street, Kingsway, Fraser area, and we can't live there. And we're being faced with either moving far away from our family, from our friends, or purchasing close by, which is an amazing option for us, especially since I don't drive, and many people don't. And it would be a real shame to be stuck having to buy outside of our home area. And yeah, and another option that we would have is to buy old product, except for how do we live there and fully gut the place and do all the renovations? How do we pay for those renovations? A young family like us, especially with any family with kids, does not want to be looking at renovations. If anyone has ever done renovations, it's probably the worst thing you can live through. So yeah, that's all I have to say for now.
Okay, that's no questions for you. Thank you for being here tonight. And that's all the registered speakers. So I'll ask if there are any more speakers for item number 4. Any more speakers here for item number 4? Last call. Speakers for item number 4. Okay, none None seen, so we'll close our speakers list, and as we've had very little or no feedback since 5 p.m., we will close our public comment period and go right to closing comments from staff. Anything from staff? No comments. Anything from the applicant team? We're good to go, and we'll go to council for closing questions. Councillor Deal?
Actually, if Councillor Carr has a question, she can go first. Do you have a question, Councillor Carr?
Okay, we'll come back to you, Councillor Deal. Councillor Carr, questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. First, I thank you very much for answering my questions in the beginning. I really appreciate particularly the information around the congestion and the shadow studies. That had been a concern to me, so thank you for that. I had two other questions, and one had come up through some of the correspondence, and that is around the possibility if there is a problem around parking with putting in resident-only parking. Is that an option that could be considered, and how would the community go about requesting that if that is a concern?
Thank you, Councillor. John Tarecki with Transportation. So that is an option in any community, and that is a process that involves a petition that goes around to the different residents, and I forget off the top of my head exactly what the level of support required to implement that would be, but that is an option that is always open. In terms of the development plan itself, there have been some steps to try and mitigate any impacts to the community. Yes. The applicant's providing some a letter of credit towards potential traffic calming measures in the community, as well the access for the site has been located onto Fraser Street to try and minimize any traffic going through the neighborhood. So,
good, thank you. I think that's important for the community to know. Appreciate that information. Second one is not traffic related, and that is also a question that had come up through correspondence around the affordability of the condos. Do we have any information about that at all?
The applicant would be able to answer regarding that.
That would be nice.
Council, my name is John Conicella, and I'm with Sarah Holdings. You know, it's a difficult question. We always say affordability. I think what we've tried to do with this project, and I think the comments we've got for the community over the last 2.5 years design panel, is that there's a real focus on the family here, both from an amenities, diversity of housing form, from low-rise, mid-rise to high-rise, and even the unit mix, where we've got over 40% of the housing for 2 bedrooms and more, which is above even the city targets. So, you know, affordability is a tough question in our city, but we've tried to provide as much diversity, unit sizes, mix of forms. We've even introduced one-level, what we call townhomes, that are at grade with the park, in hopes that people who want to get out of their single-family homes in the neighborhood, who, you know, those homes have risen, but they don't want to leave the neighborhood. And it gives them an affordable option to have a fully accessible, no-stair townhome, you know, on a green space, which is very difficult to do in this neighborhood. So we've tried to find ways to add that diversity to create affordability relative to what's there, and I think not in one way, but maybe 3 or 4 different ways. So hopefully that's
Thank you.
answered your question.
Yes, that does. And if I can just say that certainly I've heard from many young families earning fairly decent incomes, but they can't afford a single-family home, are looking for ground-oriented townhomes within the city as an option. So I think it's good you've got that in the mix.
Thank you.
That's my questions. Thank you.
That's your questions. Councillor Deal, do you have questions?
No.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor DeGenova. Questions?
No. She was on the queue to move it, and I was going to second it.
All right, so, okay. So I'll move the recommendation, just make a couple of comments. Very happy to see this proposal come forward. The South Slope, we talk a lot about different areas of the city and what they have and what they don't have, and the South Slope doesn't get a lot of attention sometimes, and this is a fantastic project. The fact that there was so little opposition from neighbors really speaks to the need for revitalization and for the commercial retail aspects, as well as the daycare and the neighborhood hub house there. So obviously a good job was done by staff and by the applicant in terms of communicating with the neighborhood what was coming. But I just hope that we see more revitalization of that southern part of the city, because the Fraser River is the reason that people lived here in the first place millennia ago. And I'm really happy to see projects bringing liveliness back down to the southern part of the city. So I'm very pleased to support this application.
Okay, Councillor right, thank you. Councillor DeGenova.
I'll be brief. I just also wanted to say that I'll be supporting the project, and I was very pleased to hear the speakers who came out tonight. I believe that family housing, especially in that neighborhood, I used to live in the Main Street neighborhood myself, and I have to say I have a number of friends who have young families who had to move out of that neighborhood because they could not find appropriate housing. Also, earlier today, I mean, if we're looking at ground-oriented townhouses, and townhomes and row homes. I was very interested to hear today at the UDI Game of Homes, and they had a great picture of our mayor up there too. The Game of Homes, which was a bit of a spin on Game of Thrones, that right now there are only 58 new townhomes for sale in the city of Vancouver. That's all we have in supply right now. So we need to increase that supply. We need to make sure that there's more family housing because if we do that, we can hopefully make things more affordable. Now, the word affordable is thrown around often. What is affordable? It can often be in the eye of the beholder, but we're certainly not going to be making a dent in that if we don't increase the supply of family housing, especially in neighborhoods that are as beloved as Fraser Slopes and the Main Street Fraser area. So very happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. And I do also want to express my thanks to staff and to the applicant team for the work on this project, and also to the residents who came out to speak. It's always good to hear that, and to those who have written to us as well. It's wonderful to have basically everybody who writes to you and comes to speak to you in support of a project. It says something is going right with that project. I am particularly impressed by, well, I've seen the decline of the site too. You know, it's been sort of sorrowful over the years to see that site, which was quite vibrant and a destination site, decline. And so for me to see its revigorization with a childcare facility, with open space, and with the mix of housing, I think that the mix of housing types and sizes, I think, is very welcome within Vancouver. So happy to support this.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Carr. I'll just add my words of thanks as well to the applicant team for a really thoughtful approach and good work in the community to make sure it's well supported. And again, we've had a few tonight like this, but this scale without having people here to shoot holes in it is quite unusual. And that speaks to the work of both the applicants and staff to make sure that's the right fit for the community, and it maximizes all the different types of housing that are so desperately needed around the city. So good work, everyone. And we'll send this to a vote. On screen right now for council. And votes are in. 8 votes, unanimous support. So we have approved that rezoning, item number 4. Thanks again to everyone working on it, and good luck with all the next steps. And we are on to our final item this evening. We'll just let people shift in and out here. The final item is the rezoning for 1550 Alberni Street. And Madam Clerk, can you please read the application and the summary of correspondence received?
This is an application by Merrick Architecture in conjunction with Kengo Kuma and Associates to rezone 1550 Alberni Street from Downtown District to CD1 District. The proposal is for a 43-story mixed-use building comprised of market residential with commercial uses at grade, all over 8 levels of underground parking, a height of 132.35 meters, and an FSR of 14.15 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning and Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. Since referral to public hearing, Council has received 22 pieces of correspondence in support of the application, 9 pieces of correspondence in opposition to the application, and 1 piece of correspondence in the other category. And this represents all correspondence received up to this time.
Okay, thanks very much. And For that, Madam Clerk, we have Linda Gillen here, rezoning planner, Vancouver Downtown Division, and she's here to present the application.
Good evening, Mayor Robertson and councillors. I'm Linda Gillen, the rezoning planner for the application. The purpose of this rezoning is to allow for a 43-story mixed-use development being considered under the West End plan. The site is located at the corner of Alberni and Cardero Streets, and surrounding development includes mixed-use residential, commercial, and office buildings ranging from 1 to 37 stories in height. The two closest buildings are 1500 Alberni Street, a residential tower immediately east of the rezoning site, and 1500 West Georgia Street, an office building to the north across Alberni Street. This rezoning is being considered under the West End Plan and accompanying rezoning policy, which were approved by Council in 2013. The plan provides a framework to guide change in the West End over the next 30 years, and opportunities for new housing and job space are identified in the corridor areas, which are shown in blue on the map. The subject site is shown in red and is part of the Georgia corridor area. 1550 Alberni Street is in Area B of the Georgia corridor, and policy in this area allows rezoning for additional market residential development. Heights of up to 500 feet can be considered, subject to view cones and shadow impacts, and maximum density is subject to urban design performance, with typical tower floor plates of 6,500 square feet being considered. This application proposes to rezone the site from Downtown District to Comprehensive Development District to allow for a 43-story mixed-use building with 181 market residential units and commercial uses at grade along Cardero Street. A height of 434 feet and a density of 14.15 FSR are proposed. The rezoning application was submitted in September 2015 and was revised in May 2016 with a reduction in the average tower floor plates as well as in the overall density. A community open house was held in November 2015, and throughout the consultation process we heard similar concerns about both rezoning proposals. Neighbourhood concerns included the proposed height, shadow and private view impacts, potential traffic impacts, and the pace of change resulting from new development in this area. I'll provide an overview of staff analysis and recommendations in response to those concerns. Under the existing zoning, the maximum discretionary height in this area would be 450 feet, and the West End plan allows consideration of up to 500 feet. In either case, the maximum height is subject to council-approved view cones, and this image shows the Alberni Street face of the proposed building, with the line at the top showing view cone 3.2.1, which is the Queen Elizabeth view cone. The proposed building at 434 feet is up to the underside of the view cone. Staff have reviewed and support the proposed height, given the urban design objectives in the West End plan, which include achieving a legible dome-shaped skyline and strengthening the urban frame of the Georgia and Burrard corridors. A unique element of this application is the proposed sculpted building form. The tower floor plate sizes range from about 3,500 square feet to about 8,300 square feet, with an average tower floor plate of over 6,600 square feet. The new building is proposed to be sited at the southwest corner of the site next to the property line, and this approach has been used to preserve private views towards Stanley Park from the existing residential tower at 1500 Alberni Street, which is highlighted in blue at the image on the slide. The proposal meets the required minimum 80-foot tower separation from existing buildings, with a distance of 94 feet being provided from the neighbouring residential building at 1500 Alberni Street. Staff are recommending design conditions to further sculpt the building and to reduce the average tower floor plate. In response to staff review and additional feedback from neighbours, additional design conditions have been recommended to enhance the laneway interface through public realm improvements and to increase the transparency of the landscaping along Alberni Street. A second concern related to the potential traffic impacts. A transportation study was provided as part of the application material, and the study indicated that the proposed development would generate a similar number of trips as the existing office development, and so staff do not anticipate an increase in traffic during peak hours. As shown on the map, the site is well located with respect to active transportation and transit infrastructure, and improvements to the existing pedestrian and cycling network are anticipated along Cardero Street. The third concern related to the anticipated pace of change in the area. This is the first rezoning application in the Georgia corridor area to come forward to Council following adoption of the West End Plan in 2013, although staff do note that there are other applications in process in this area. Street use for construction on arterial streets is coordinated citywide, not only for development-related construction, but also for road and utility construction. The applicant has offered a community amenity contribution with a value of $32 million. This includes $9.54 million through the purchase of heritage and amenity bonus density, with the remaining $22.5 million as a cash CAC. Staff recommend that the cash CAC be allocated to a range of projects serving the West End neighbourhood, including expansion and renewal of community facilities in the West End, public realm improvements to Cardero, Alberni, and Georgia Streets, with a new public plaza at Butte Street in the Robson Village, and to affordable housing. The community amenity contributions through rezoning's policy currently requires full payment of any cash CAC before rezoning enactment. Given the scale of the cash CAC being offered and the associated financing implications, staff in this case are recommending a phased approach to CAC payment. If approved, this would constitute a waiver by Council of the current requirements of the policy. And as shown on the slide, the majority of the CAC, including the purchase and transfer of heritage and amenity bonus density, would be delivered before enactment. The remaining $12 million would be due within 12 months of enactment. In summary, staff conclude that this application is consistent with the rezoning policy for the area and recommend that the application be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the agenda package. Staff and members of the applicant team are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. And I will ask our applicant team here if they wish to speak to the application prior to hearing from speakers and questions. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Gregory Borofsky with Merrick Architecture, and we're very pleased to bring this project before Council tonight. Thank you. Need a little bit of extra height. This project in alignment with all of the goals of the West End Plan, and also bringing forward in association with Kingo Kuma and Associates from Tokyo towards a new benchmark of architectural excellence. So this is one of the key goals also with the plan with respect to the architecture too. So we are available to answer questions, so would be pleased to take them when Council have them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Borowski. So we've got questions, first of all, from Councillor Ball for staff and the applicants.
Yes, my first two questions before we hear from speakers. I believe there was some discussion about the shadowing and how this building would affect others in the area. And I'm just wondering on page 8 of 9 in Appendix C where the shadowing exists, on the bottom right, the line appears to go for many blocks down and it cuts off. I'm just not sure how far it actually goes in terms of shadowing. If you could confirm that that's what that is and not just a mistake in how far it's drawn.
Excellent question. Good evening. Patrick O'Sullivan, Senior Planner in Urban Design. You are correct. The image is a little unclear when printed in black and white. The shadow extends to about Pender Street in this case. In reviewing shadows, staff typically look at any influences on shopping areas or shadows that may land on parks. In this case, staff are satisfied that neither are issues that we need to worry about in this case.
So it's other people's windows and not a park. So you
Correct.
Don't take into account other people's windows. It's more if there's a park or a shopping area
Correct.
that you look at.
Correct.
Just in terms of are there other large buildings that can go in there and then create just an area of complete darkness if there's another large building going in there?
It's possible if future construction in the area may create extra shadowing. However, there is a beautiful and wonderful experience downtown because we have so many glass towers of the reflected, borrowed light from reflected light downtown. Admittedly, that's not a factor we look at, but it is a nice factor of being downtown, and it is a consequence of towers in close proximity that do have glassy finishes.
Oh, borrowed light, I hadn't heard that phrase before. The other question I had was about the children's area and the children's play area, which I believe we've talked about a number of times, just in terms of the size. I was a little confused by the embedded bamboo and children, and I wasn't sure whether that was still on the menu or what were we embedding the children with?
That's once again a good question. We have asked the applicant to, in one of our conditions, to clarify and improve the location and use of that space. So it does appear in some of the renderings to have a bamboo-like quality, perhaps to coincide with the bamboo forecourt along Alberni. But we are looking for that area to, of course, be more conducive to children's play, and that's one of our conditions.
It would be nice when these come forward with children's play areas mentioned that we actually get more detail so that we're aware if we are looking at family housing and this is important, then it would be nice to be able to see it in the development so that we actually understand what is being done here. Because it's difficult for me looking at it and how I would explain it to anyone.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all your questions, Councilor Barr?
At the moment, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Carr, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to follow up with some questions that arise, Ms. Gillen, from the presentation, actually. And the first was that there are going to be conditions of approval, including decreasing the floor size of the floor plate. I noticed that the floor plate is 6,620 square feet. And the West End plan talks about 6,500 square feet. Is a reduction going to be down to 6,500 square feet consistent with the plan?
That is our very first condition is to reduce the floor plate to meet the objective of the plan, which is 6,500 square feet.
Thank you. I also noted in the language of your introduction that there was also going to be an extra effort to sculpt the building. Is that to further reduce the impact on views at 1500 Alberni?
That sculpting is just, once again, to reduce the floor plate. So,
okay.
But it would be a very, admittedly, very slender sculpting to reduce
I can see.
6,500.
Yes. Okay. So I'll ask other questions about views probably later. Changes, another statement in the introduction that was made is changes to the lane, is it the parking ramp or the loading bay? I'm not quite sure what the changes are that are being suggested, and is this to mitigate some of the impact of on traffic in the lane?
The conditions that were referred to in the presentation related more to the laneway interface, so things like pedestrian lighting and landscaping and making that space more attractive for pedestrians who would be using it.
Right.
There are conditions, engineering conditions in Appendix B which relate to the loading space and to access to the underground parking that just look to improve the design and make it consistent with what engineering would expect.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to ask a few questions that have arisen from correspondence to Mayor and Council in the last few weeks. One question was, is a water main upgrade required for this project?
So we have a standard condition which you would see in most, the Appendix B of most rezoning reports where there's a new building being proposed, which says that additional review is needed to determine whether water main upgrading is required. So that's something that if council were to approve the rezoning and the applicant were to come in with a development permit application, they would be providing a much greater level of detail at that stage in the permitting process.
Okay, so
that review would happen later.
But we would be assessing that.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely.
Okay, there was another question that came in through correspondence to us around the impact of both the demolition as well as the building process on the well-being in the neighborhood. Noise, extra traffic, air quality, quite a lot of concern, especially when the traffic really increases during the summer months along that corridor. What mitigation measures do we have in place for the community in terms of the construction, the demolition and the construction phases?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Lena Cheng from Transportation. I'll do my best to answer that. I'm not a construction expert. But in terms of noise, the construction site would be required to abide by the noise bylaw. So there are rules about how early and how late they can work. There are also regulations about dust control. So air quality should hopefully be covered by that. We do have rules about street use. So that is coordinated when there's multiple construction sites happening nearby.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Councillor DeGenova, questions?
I just had a question regarding the community amenity contributions. I understand in the presentation it was listed as $32 million and that would be distributed throughout a number of different uses in the community. I was wondering if there were any target dates as to when that money would be spent in the community, and have those funds already been earmarked for certain projects?
You're speaking to the public benefit strategy, yes. Michael Gordon, Senior Planner. The implementation of many of the public amenities that are identified in the report will have to be implemented through the capital plan. So as part of the capital planning process, what will be coming to you in about a year and a half from now will indeed be making decisions on what capital planning initiatives should be underway in the West End. So should it be improvements on Alberni Street, Robson Street, and other initiatives that are identified in the report.
So a follow-up question to that. So these funds would be earmarked or set aside for the next capital fund, or the next capital plan?
It's your decision if it's the next capital plan or a capital plan after that. But indeed, what happens is the funds are earmarked for those specific projects as identified in the report.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Deal.
Yes, thanks very much. Just a couple questions around the Japanese garden and the promenade. And these are questions that came up at the Public Art Committee as well. Quite interested in the amphitheater and the areas. Those are intended to be open to the public, yes? Is that correct?
The covered garden area would be essentially an outdoor amenity space for residents of the building. So while members of the public would certainly be able to view that and use it as an access point to the commercial areas or to the residential entry, I don't believe that the intent is for that to be something equivalent to a park or a public plaza, right, where there's a statutory right-of-way in place.
And that was what was unclear, but it won't be fenced off. I know these are design details at this point, but it's an issue I'm interested in, is that space with the piano and the promenade around it, and at one point to delineate between the public realm and the private realm and how that's delineated, because it's going to be quite prominent on that corner.
Yeah, so the applicant hasn't indicated any intention to fence that area off, and we do have a landscape condition that looks for greater transparency and visibility so that people walking along that stretch of Alberni Street are able to see into that space. Okay,
because if they're successful with getting the piano in there, sometimes people will want to come into that space. So I'll just watch that as it evolves over the development if it's approved of, but that's something I'm interested in, so thank you.
Okay, that's it for questions, and that means we're on to hearing from speakers who have registered to speak first. And speaker number one is Bill Obb, followed by Charles Gauthier. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor Robertson and councilors. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bill Abe. I'm an impassioned citizen living and working in downtown Vancouver, and I am in support of this project. You know, I think the late Bing Tom had it right when he described Vancouver as an adolescent city. And what he meant by that was it was one that it doesn't know quite what it wants to be when it grows up, but it's a city with tremendous potential and tremendous promise. And so every once in a while, a project like this one comes along, a project that pushes Vancouver towards meeting its enormous potential, a project that helps the city grow up, to answer Mr. Tom, a project that gives the city something thoughtful and distinct and beautiful, a project that's a worthwhile use of our precious limited space. What we're getting is no less than a work of art. It's a delicate masterpiece that, you know, along with Vancouver House and other projects, will help put Vancouver on the architectural map. But perhaps even more important than what the skyline gets are the spillover benefits, namely the $32 million that the city will get for community amenities, including over $21 million right back to the West End. That's money for things that we need more of: daycares, community centers, libraries, places for nonprofit groups to fulfill their social purpose. That's money for community spaces that we are seeing steadily disappear. That's money for spaces that doesn't need to come from us, the taxpayer. $32 million, that's a lot. And imagine what the city could have gotten had we allowed the project to be 63 stories instead of 43 stories. But that's another story. Now, some people may have their concerns, as is their right. Some may say that there's too much density, but the way I see it, density comes with activity and vitality and opportunity. It comes with more people to attract and justify the things that make city life nicer. Some folks may complain about traffic, but aren't we the greenest city? I mean, is it reasonable to expect a level of suburban-style car friendliness in downtown Vancouver? So, some folks may complain that their views are blocked, but blocked by what? It's going to be blocked by a work of architectural art. You know, where I come from, they would call that a city view, and people pay more for that. And I guarantee that someone's view is not going to be pumping $20 million back into the West End community facilities. They also may contain that the units are too expensive. And these family-sized units probably will be expensive for a lot of us. They're definitely not starter homes. But I'd rather someone buy one of these units than buy two of the units I'd try to go and buy, and so on. So despite these concerns, this project and those like it, in my opinion, advance us as a city. They are important to us fulfilling our potential and fulfilling our destiny. We all benefit from this project, even if we don't live in it. So I ask you to please help continue to move this city forward by approving this project. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for being here to speak. No questions for you. Next speaker is Charles Gauthier, President and CEO of the Downtown Vancouver Business Improvement Association. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm actually reading from the letter that we submitted, and there are some attachments, which obviously I'm not going to refer to, but I thought it was important to come here and support this application. The purpose of this letter is to communicate our support for the rezoning of 1550 Alberni Street from DD Downtown District to CD1 Comprehensive Development District, so that a 43-story mixed-use building comprised of market residential with commercial uses at grade can be constructed. In addition to adding the current housing supply, this development will contribute much-needed funds for public realm improvements identified in the West End Community Plan, and in particular, a much-needed streetscape makeover for the city's established and growing luxury retail district, Alberni Street. The Alberni Retail District has truly emerged over the course of the past 5 years, with restaurants, hotels, and luxury retailers establishing a presence on the street. Commercial building owners have made a significant investment in their respective buildings to attract these street-level tenants, many new to market, to a previously mundane and uninteresting street that was only known as the back door to the office buildings fronting Georgia Street. It is now a destination for both locals and visitors who choose to dine at its many varied price point restaurants and shop for luxurious goods. The volume of pedestrian traffic there now cries out for wider sidewalks, more sidewalk patios, so people can linger and people watch. The Cobra-style highway lighting infrastructure is so 1990s and has been deemed unstable to hang anything other than small banners on them. In short, the public realm needs a makeover. As you are likely aware, the Downtown Vancouver BIA and many of our members actively participated in the formulation of the West End Community Plan since Alberni Street between Burrard and Butte falls within our district. City staff worked with us to identify a number of public realm improvements for Alberni Street that include wider sidewalks, mid-block crossings, landscaping, street furniture, and a new pedestrian-oriented lighting system that traverses the roadway that would make it the first of its kind in the city. And again, there were some diagrams in the original letter. The scope of work done thus far and the commitment from the building owners and the tenants are both impressive, making this public realm project an ideal candidate to be started and completed well before 2020. What is needed is a significant portion of the $8.25 million of the community amenity contributions referenced in this rezoning application to be allocated to the Alberni Retail District. The public realm improvements for the Alberni Retail District listed above are desperately needed now for all the reasons listed above, but furthermore, it would enable our organization to step up its placemaking initiatives, more street banners, more public seating, more sidewalk patios, more festivals and events, more Fun Vancouver. The Alberni Retail District has the potential to become a true community amenity for the growing residential population located a few blocks away on Alberni Street, including 1550 Alberni Street. Thank you for permitting me to share what we envision for the Alberni Retail District, why it's important, why it needs to be done at the top of the list of priorities, and the connection to this rezoning application. So just to wrap up, we're in support of the rezoning application.
All right, thank you very much for being here.
Great, thank you.
Present that, no questions for you. Thank you. And speaker number 3 is withdrawn. Speaker number 4 is Kirk McClarty, followed by speaker 5 is Matthew Yoshitake.
Good evening, Mayor Robertson and councillors. My name is Kirk McClarty. While I moved to the West End this summer to Kitts, I lived at the corner of Alberni and Bidwell, just 1 block from the site for 9 years. As a neighboring property owner, I followed the planning process for 1550 Alberni with great excitement and appreciate the opportunity to share my opinions with you tonight on this proposal. New development is often tough for existing property owners to openly accept. Construction is a nuisance and Alberni will inevitably see more traffic. However, in this case, I can genuinely state that I am excited about the project of this new building in the neighborhood due to its thoughtful and elegant design. So much so that I'll be exploring the opportunity to relocate back in the neighborhood to this building. I believe that this unique architecture will add to the view corridor down Alberni and will elevate the standard for future development in the area and on the street. I also appreciate and commend the design team for their creative solution to preserving views in the area with the building cutouts. The ground level, which is how the majority of the public will experience this building, will see a dramatic improvement over the current site. I look forward to the Japanese-inspired landscaping and the amphitheater, and new retail which will add a new sense of vibrancy to the strip. As someone who has walked that strip of Alberni and Cardero countless times, these public realm improvements, particularly on Cardero, will make a real and positive impact to the pedestrian experience. In addition to the benefits the community will receive through the physical design, in reading the staff report, I see the rezoning will deliver a CAC of $32 million, the majority of which will stay in the West End and be directed towards community facilities, affordable housing, and further public realm improvements. This is fantastic, and I do applaud the city staff for their hard work on this. Finally, I have had the privilege of hearing Mr. Kengo Kuma speak this last spring in Vancouver. His affection for the natural environment and how it inspires his design is a perfect fit for our city of Vancouver. I sincerely and respectfully urge council to approve this, and I am in support of it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for being here. No questions? Thanks. And speaker number 5, Matthew Yoshitake, followed by D. Michael Dobbin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Matthew Yoshitake, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening about the proposed application for 1550 Alberni Street. I am the current Vice President of Kenyukai, a community of Japanese-related professionals in Vancouver that are active in the architecture, housing, and construction industries. As such, I will come as no surprise that our organization has taken a great interest in this rezoning for 1550 Alberni due to its Japanese influence and unique architectural expression, both in its tower form and through its imaginative and inclusive ground level. The Kenyukai wishes the project a speedy and successful approval. On a more personal level, last year, I was fortunate to lead the delegation of 50-year Golden Jubilee for Sister City, Vancouver and Yokohama, Japan, which is the hometown of architect Kengo Kuma. I was able to attend Kuma's presentation at UBC last spring, and while on business in Tokyo last month, I had a pleasure to meeting with Kengo Kuma in person. I believe Kuma's building philosophy makes him a clear top choice for a significant project in Vancouver like 1550 Alberni. Kuma was recently commissioned to design Tokyo's new National Olympic Stadium for 2020 Olympic. In keeping with this traditional Japanese style and philosophy that wood is universal and the material for 21st century. Kuma plans to use as much wood as possible in his stadium design. His focus on the utilization of wood and bamboo in his work, including his design for 1550 Alberni, is not only in line with our Wood First Act, but also celebrates and pays homage of our natural surrounding here in Vancouver. I believe this building has the potential to become one of our city's most well-known architectural icons and will ensure unique and lasting precedent for high-quality architecture in our beautiful city. I urge Council to support this proposal. I look forward to celebrating the completion of the piece of art with everyone here this evening. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Michael Dobbin. Michael Dobbin. Is he here from the Cole Harbour Residents Association? Don't see him here, so we'll move on to Ian Haywood Farmer. Will be followed by Margaret Amaro.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of this proposal. For nearly 15 years, I've been actively attached to the West End Community Centre Association, and some of you may know me through that. I am not representing the association. I'm speaking as an individual in this case, but I can't help but zero in to that very significant placeholder of $10.5 million for community amenity redevelopment in the West End. Our libraries, seniors facilities, and community center is stretched. And while we've had the opportunity to solve some problems in an interim way, such as when a previous council wisely made Cole Harbour Community Center a part of that development, which we operate jointly. As more people move in the West End, as more people in the downtown area don't have a backyard like they do in Kerrisdale or South Vancouver, they rely upon community centers and libraries and public space. And West End Community Center in the near future is likely going to undergo some form of significant redevelopment. But I think that this significant placeholder of dollars is going to be a very important part of that, because as you know, these facilities cost a fortune, and this will be one part of that and help us move towards that goal. Again, I think that the design is quite beautiful aside from that, and it meets with the objective of the West End Community Plan. We knew that larger buildings and more condominium-oriented buildings were going to be on those sites down below in Georgia Street, and there was going to be a focus on rental housing and lower rise in other parts of the West End. And so this is part of that whole process, and that's why I think that we're kind of lucky to have this as sort of a starter and as being one of the first buildings done under the new parameters of the West End plan. Thanks for your time and consideration, and I hope you'll approve this project.
Okay, thank you very much for being here to speak. Next speaker, Margaret Amaro. Is Margaret Amaro here? Not here. And the last registered speaker we have is Anthony Kupferschmidt, who's upstairs on his way down. I'll just check one more time. Is Steve Michael Dobbin here? He's not. You haven't seen him here, yeah. Okay, and then I'll call 3 times for any more speakers. And welcome.
Very much. Good evening, Mayor Robertson and councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and thank you to the staff for their efforts to prepare for this potential rezoning. My name is Anthony Kupferschmidt. I'm the Executive Director with the West End Seniors Network. I'm also a West End resident for the past 11 years and counting. I should also mention that I sit on the City Seniors Advisory Committee. However, I want to declare that I'm not speaking to you tonight as a member of the Seniors Advisory Committee or on behalf of the Seniors Advisory Committee. I'm speaking to you only as a West End resident and on behalf of the West End Seniors Network. So I had the opportunity to participate in the related open house on behalf of the West End Seniors Network, and our organization was interested, obviously, to learn about the proposed community amenity contributions associated with the proposed rezoning and the allocation of these CACs toward the renewal and expansion of community facilities, including the West End Community Centre, as you've heard, the Joe Fortes branch, perhaps, of the Vancouver Public Library, and hopefully the West End Seniors Network as well. So our organization is currently based in Barclay Manor, a Vancouver Parks Board building, and Barclay Heritage Square, as well as in 2 locations supported by CACs in the Denman Place Mall, for which we're most grateful. However, our organization is limited by the size, the age, and the accessibility of our existing locations. And as our membership grows and the population continues to age, the level of need for space for older adults to access programs and services in the West End continues to grow. We've expressed our desire previously to become part of plans for Area F that encompasses the West End Community Centre and the Joe Fortes branch. We already have a very strong relationship with the West End Community Centre Association, and we hope to play a meaningful role in the improvements in this area. However, we also have concerns about the lack of social and affordable housing proposed at the site, and as seniors on fixed incomes are being priced out of the West End with all of the development that's happening in our neighbourhood right now. So it's our hope that the CACs toward affordable housing can be prioritized for housing older adults to ensure that the neighborhood is welcome to people of all ages. So in closing, I am in support of the recommendation with the hope that the CACs can be directed to support older adults in the West End. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for being here, Mr. Kupferschmidt. No questions for you?
Comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Very much for coming here because
your microphone is not here.
Sorry, is that better? Since you've become the director there, you've come a number of times on issues that are important for seniors, and your voice is really important to us to hear that.
Thank you.
And also just to keep reminding us of your issues. So. There is a lot of money here involved, and we hear your concerns, and we note that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevenson. I appreciate it.
Okay, Councillor Carr, did you have questions?
I actually do. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. So I thank you for being here and all the work you do in the community, and also your participation through this process. I'm wondering, there are allocated cash CACs, but they're not allocated completely. So there's over $10 million towards renewal and expansion of community facilities in and around the West End. And Senior Centre and our cultural space is listed. Did that arise out of the meeting or the participation that you had through the process, input on the CACs?
I couldn't speak to that directly. I certainly hope so. Those conversations started to have before I started in this role over a year and a half ago. So it's possible that it did extend from those conversations, but you can be sure I will be following up as a result of that too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Were you given any indication through that participation of what the process would be should this be approved tonight? Like, what is the process for determining the COs, the more specific allocation COC?
I would love to know the answer to that question, so I don't actually have that information. But again, that'll be part of the follow-up that we do after tonight. So.
I can also ask staff
Wonderful.
tonight.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank you very
for
much,
being
Councillor
here.
Carr.
And Councillor Ball, you have questions?
Yes,
Oh,
thank you.
Councillor.
Always nice to see you. You mentioned older adults. You hope that there would be funding available for services for older adults. Can you mention or think of something specific that you think would be useful in that area with this available funding?
Well, certainly. As I mentioned, of course, funding for the housing for older adults would be paramount. We're seeing a growing number of seniors who come to our locations who are needing to choose between paying for their medications, paying their rent, paying for food, or paying for their hydro. We are finding ourselves moving more and more towards providing housing support that actually helps seniors move out of the West End, not because we want to, but because there's nowhere that they can afford to live. So certainly that's a pressing issue that we're seeing growing among our membership and the clients that we serve. We benefit greatly from being able to access Barclay Manor and our locations in the Denman Place Mall. We got about 1,000 square feet in the Denman Place Mall that we split between two locations, our thrift store, our social enterprise, and our Case Place drop-in center information and referral site. And not a day goes by where I'm asked, oh, we could use some more space. There's not enough chairs in here. There's not enough room. So having the room to have those opportunities for socialization and the ability to, for ourselves or other organizations to be able to deliver programs and services to those older adults would be, I think, quite valuable and needed in the community. So I don't know if that's specific enough for you, Councillor Ball.
That's help. And are you looking at how the senior population is going to increase in the West End? No matter how many people you move out, there's still going to be seniors. So are you planning in terms of the growth of seniors there?
We are actually, and again, that's more conversations I'm hoping to be able to continue to have with the City of Vancouver around that. But our membership is over 800 strong and growing, and so we know seniors are moving out of the West End. But we also know the population is aging. There's over 11,000 seniors presently in the West End. Really pushed the census, as you can imagine, very recently to our membership to make sure that they're counted. And I think there's that balance that's happening of the growing population with that exodus is a bit of a strong word, but there is some of that happening as well among seniors. So we believe that their membership is going to continue to grow, and we're already bumping up against some of the limitations of our existing space and ability to deliver programs. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Okay, that is all your questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes. We can do that in questions from council. That's okay. I'll just call for, see if there's any more speakers. Any more speakers for item number 5? There's one. You're up. If you could give us your name for the public record, please.
Sure. My name is Nitin Madhvani, and I'm a resident of the West End and a former board member for a not-for-profit housing association in the West End as well. I've already registered a letter of support with the clerk, so I won't really speak to details in that, other than to say I think it's a fantastic building. I think it's going to improve the skyline of the city and really put us on the map architecturally. I also am very much in support of the CAC funding, especially the amount that's going to affordable housing. I feel like we could do a little more, but I'm happy with the $3.5 million or so that's been set aside. And so just to be clear, I'm in support of this application and encourage you to approve it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for stepping up and sharing your thoughts. And are there any more speakers here for this item? Please. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dean Malone. I'm a 20-year resident of the West End. As you're aware, I was very involved in the process leading to the development of the West End Plan of 2013, and I've continued to remain active and aware of the resulting progress for our community. I'm here this evening to express my encouragement for you to support this rezoning application at 1550 Alberni. This application is an outstanding example of what the community had in mind under the revised rezoning policy and our new community plan. Firstly, this unique and leading architectural design by Kengo Kuma is so welcome for our Vancouver skyline and streetscape. We have envisioned a city and a future for the West End that is not dominated by rectangular glass tubes, but rather our desire for inclusion of sculpted built form, which is so much a part of Kengo Kuma's concept for this building. This particular design will respect our community's priorities for maximizing sunlight at street level and preserving views of the North Shore and Stanley Park. This rezoning application clearly meets with the objectives under the West End Plan and the rezoning policy for the Georgia Corridor. It also achieves several key components of the West End Community Plan by providing increased housing density along the Georgia Corridor. This building is a key component of our want to strengthen the urban frame. We identified in the community plan that we wanted Georgia, Alberni, and Thurlow Burrard to be those anchors while achieving existing lower buildings within the core of the West End. It is also well within the allowable height of 500 feet. Of most important to me is the $32 million in dedicated West End community amenity contributions that will be realized from this rezoning, which will have a significant impact on our ability to move more quickly to achieve much needed renewal and improvement to community facilities and amenities. I appreciate the recommendations for CACs for the public realm, affordable housing, and I do echo the need for allocation to seniors' affordable housing and heritage density, but also most significantly, and not necessarily separately from the other items, is the $10.6 million for our community center, library, and aquatic center, which are in urgent need of renewal. I envision Area F as an opportunity for all of those items, plus the affordable housing and other opportunities to be in one location. The renewal of these facilities will provide us with immeasurable opportunities to serve West Enders. The vision for the corridors and the resulting CACs from rezonings like this one are a critical component of what we agreed to in our community plan. It was expected in the plan, and we are counting on it for the future of the West End. Rezonings like this one are exactly what we asked for and achieved in our community plan. Thank you for your consideration of this rezoning, and I encourage you to approve this legacy project for the West End.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Malone, for being here and speaking. And I'll call one last time. Are there any more speakers here for item number 5? Okay, with that, we will close our speakers list. And as we've had very few or no comments since 5 p.m., we'll close our public comments overall and move to final comments from staff, first of all.
No additional final comments from staff.
Okay. Any final comments from the applicant team?
No further comments from us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to questions. Final round of questions for council. Councillor Carr.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do have a few other questions. My first question is really around how the allocation for the public amenities will take place. I mean, there's over $10 million allocated for those amenities, and there's quite a list: the community centers, seniors, child care, etc. So how does that process unfold?
Michael Gordon, Senior Planner, Downtown. First of all, the public benefit strategy is very clear on what community facilities are targeted for the West End to serve the growth that we're seeing right now. But there are a number of facilities. Of course, we've got an enlarged community center that indeed will have a seniors facility as well as a larger library, recreation facilities, a rink, childcare. We're also, of course, there's the cultural facility, an aquatic center. Also to notice that the West End plan specifically identified the Georgia Corridor and the Alberni Street rezonings as ones that would generate community amenity contributions that would go towards this array of community facilities. So we've done costing of the community facilities, and we're confident, in fact, that married with capital planning money as well as the community amenity contributions, that we can deliver the community facilities that are identified. Really, the decisions to be made are whether to include them in the next capital plan or the capital plan after that. Also to notice that with the community center site, we also have the park board involved. The library board would be involved with that decision as well.
Thank you. You did talk earlier too about the capital plans. There is an opportunity for residents to input into the capital plan coming up, is there not?
That's correct.
Right, okay.
So in terms of prioritizing what facilities should be built, there'll be an opportunity to do that.
Right, well, we can encourage residents in that regard. Thank you. That's one question. A second question that I have is the process for, I did ask earlier around concerns that residents might have, and they do have, they've already raised them as potential concerns around the construction, the demolition and the construction phase. And the answer was that we do have bylaws in place. I understand that, noise bylaws, etc. But how do residents proceed if they're finding those bylaws are not being followed? Either around parking on street, which is at a real premium in the West End by construction workers, or if there's excess noise or whatever.
The best thing to do in a situation like that for any resident with concerns about bylaw enforcement would be to call 311. 311 service obviously would be able to connect them with the necessary staff person, and then that's also a central repository that would collect if there's been a number of calls about a particular site or a particular issue, whatever that might be.
Or they could contact Councillor Stevenson or myself, who I believe are the two councillors that are neighbourhood liaison councillors, if they find... We are, but we will definitely take them from the West End. You had to be at earlier meetings to understand this. Okay, so I know that 311 is a regular rodent, but sometimes people really, it's many complaints, and they get frustrated. So just they know that they can contact council or any member of council. My third question is around something I didn't ask earlier, but the West End plan doesn't specify FCR. The downtown official development plan does, and I note in the report it talks about 6 FSR. But of course this is at 14.15 FSR. Can you explain to me what leeway there is in the West End plan for such a big leap in FSR?
As long as proposals are meeting the floor plate control, which controls bulk and girth essentially of a tower, and any height. In this case, it's the view cone from the Queen Elizabeth Park.
Right.
And then from there, it's we follow the principles in the West End plan, which will govern things such as preservation of private views, and we look for sculpting and protection of those views. So those things in combination would affect the form and mass, which as a consequence density falls out of.
And there's a condition of approval to bring the floor plate size.
It's our number one.
Great, thank you. And I have one final question, and it did again arise out of a piece of correspondence to Mayor and Council on this issue, and that was a concern that there might be some impact either during the deconstruction or the or demolition and the construction phases on the actual structural integrity of 1500 Alberni. I wonder if you could comment on that.
It's an interesting question that the integrity of both the structure of the proposal and during construction fall under the responsibility of the professional responsibility of the structural engineers of the design team, and obviously the contractor as well. So it's outside of staff's the structural design is vetted through the building code group, but outside of that, construction matters are and the structural integrity of the building, and neighbors fall under the professional responsibility of the structural engineer of the design team.
And we are conditioning that this is being very closely, it will be very closely monitored should this.
Of course it will be, but what's being proposed here should be very clear. It's aside from absolutely spectacular building, the fact that a tower is being constructed next to another tower is fairly conventional for downtown.
Thank you. That's my questions.
Okay, Councillor Ball, questions?
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Gordon, you finished your answer to the question earlier. Yes, thank you very much. I had just a couple of questions that have come to me. The first is, do you take the 80-foot separation between buildings from the property line to property line? Is that how they're measured, or what is it? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding.
Sure, that's the 80-foot separation would be taken from building face to building face. So in this case, from 1500 Alberni to the westernly most facade of the proposal is 94 foot 5, so it exceeds the 80 feet separation.
So if that other building were to go down at some point, they would still have an 80-foot separation and be equal to the other building, basically.
Absolutely, there would be plenty of room for, should 1500 Alberni ever decide to redevelop, there's plenty of room on that site to satisfy the 80 feet separation and achieve new development under the West End plan if they chose to do that.
Thank you. Because a number of people have asked me about the 80 feet, and I think almost no one knows where it comes from or where it goes to. So that's very helpful. The other question is does any part of the building, it's a beautiful building, but does any part of it go over the property line?
Absolutely not. The only things that would extend would be weather protection, i.e. Canopy, but those are required to be demountable by our engineering group such that if the city needs to access anything below grade on a city property, that they can still get equipment by demounting the canopies, but absolutely no part of the building can extend beyond the property lines.
Okay. So that's...
Just to follow up on Patrick's comments, I think you may be referring to one of the engineering conditions in Appendix B of the report, which is to clarify that no portion of the building extends over the property line. There were some landscape drawings where the property line appeared to be at the very edge of the building. So it's just a point of clarification.
Indeed, that's what I was asking about. Thank you. And my final one was the balcony over the loading bay. How close is it to the building next to it? How close is that? Will it be looking into people's windows? Is it going to interfere in any way with the enjoyment of the people who already are there?
Sure, understand. Just so I understand, are you talking about the proposed use on top of the loading space?
Yes.
Which we've asked for clarification from the applicant on, and at which time we would review impacts such as overlook or privacy into the open spaces of 1500 Alberni. It should be noted that the pavilion in the southwest corner of the adjacent site is oriented towards the east. However, we would ask the applicant to thoroughly demonstrate that any proposed use they put there minimizes any impacts.
Mm-hmm. So you will be looking to mitigate any issues there?
Absolutely, absolutely. And to answer your question about distance, it is about 60 feet from the property line to the westerly face of 1500 Alberni.
So that's about 20 feet closer than you would normally expect?
Actually, no. The 80-foot separation is intended for residential uses above a podium height. So 60, 70 feet, we would expect a separation from one residential building to another. On elements lower than that, we're more forgiving.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Jang, questions?
I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no other questions.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Questions? More, so go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy to move the recommendations for this building. Last year, I had the honor of going to Yokohama on the 50th anniversary of our 20 of our cities. And a lot of the time was spent being shown the different types of architecture that's going up in Tokyo and Yokohama and other parts of Japan. And it was absolutely breathtaking and stunning. And so when this was being proposed, it was really quite exciting, especially when you go now to the Yokohama waterfront. It's just a beautiful place to be. It's just unbelievable. And what's really exciting as well is the size of the CAC. I've never seen a CAC this large. And, you know, it's almost unprecedented in the sense that would actually, you know, go towards doing a new community center, public realm improvements, you know, that would in many ways reminds me of that integrated community and beautiful area down in the Yokohama waterfront. And, you know, it's just a stunning building. So I'm very happy to move this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jang. Councillor Carr to the motion.
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, some of you who have watched my votes over the years at council know that I have concerns, and I've expressed them many times around height and density of buildings, and really question is this heights and densities within the community plans and community expectations, and are they adding to significantly to public good. And in this case, I have to say that I'm super happy with a condition of approval that brings the floor plate size to that which is specified in the West End plan. So it reduces that density somewhat. And the height is within the stipulated height for this area as under the West End plan and under the under the view cone from Queen Elizabeth Park. So I don't have concerns around that. This is meeting the policy that has been established. I really sympathize with the loss of views of people who are in the adjacent building at 1500 Alberni. I mean, they've had just fabulous views of Stanley Park, and many of them will lose it, and I feel for them. I do note that the sculpting of the building will somewhat enable more views than if it had been a solid building, and I appreciate that. Other concerns raised by residents, I did ask of staff, and I feel that I did get satisfactory answers around those concerns. So again, I don't have any issues around that. So that leaves me to, I think, the real benefits of the building. And for me, one is the community amenity contributions. They're very significant in our city, and I'm really happy to know that the West End plan, in the wisdom of that plan and the people participating in its creation, it did really talk about wanting more of the community amenity contributions in this corridor to go to community amenities, to the cultural services, the public realm improvements, the community centers, the child care, the library, the seniors facilities, these kinds of things that we need more of, not just because some of us are aging more, but because we are growing as a city, and it's incredibly important that, I know affordable housing is so critical, but it's so important as we grow that we provide those community amenities, because that's what keeps our city livable. That's what gives people quality of life in this city. My final point is around the architecture itself. I think it's stunning. I think it's an iconic building, and I think it's going to really contribute. It's going to be one of those additions to the landscape of Vancouver that people will stand in awe of. They'll remark on it every time they go past that building. So for those reasons, I will be supporting this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deal.
Yes, thank you. I won't go on at great length, but I'll just say that to accommodate the West End plan, to carve the building out so that it minimizes impacts on shadowing and views, and to come up with such a stunning design as this one is truly a remarkable achievement. So I just want to thank the applicant team for going that extra length to build us not only something that's compliant and accommodating and and responsive to the situation it's in, but it is going to be such a stunning piece of architecture in our city. And thank you for taking that extra time and that extra effort that you do as applicants to bring this forward. Thank you to the neighborhood and the people who worked so hard on the West End plan. It's a product of your work, so I appreciate that. And thank you to our staff. It's a big signature project that I can't wait to see achieved. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ball is next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For years, our planners and architects and artists in the community have been calling for exciting buildings, exciting architecture. And certainly this building is exciting. It is also a fact that almost every building going up now in some way affects another person's light, air, view, and for many people that's tragic. So we can understand, we can sympathize, and hope and appreciate that the mitigation that has been worked on here is something that will make a huge difference to the people that can be affected by that mitigation, and hope that even more might be possible. But I do think that we have to accept that the city is changing radically, and particularly in the West End, and that when we get a beautiful building, it's not out of line to request that it does acknowledge the needs of the neighbors, and hope that in the future, as our staff have said, that they will be working further to make sure that the new building is a good neighbor to the old one. But I know that everyone will appreciate it as they drive down and see something exciting for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor DiGenova.
Thank you very much. I also would very much like to thank staff and the applicant team. I feel that I was shocked at first when I had first read the report to see 88% family housing in a building that is so iconic that I was very happy to see that. I understand that there's only a requirement of 25% family housing in the West End plan, but having 142 bedroom units and another 23 bedroom units, I think will seriously make an impact on family housing. Will that be affordable housing? As I said before, I think affordability is in the eye of the beholder, but we're certainly not going to get more affordable without that supply. And we certainly need that supply here in Vancouver. I understand, I saw a presentation with lots of numbers, and it's throughout Metro Vancouver that we need supply, but especially in Vancouver, our numbers in Vancouver are lower than anywhere else, and we're not going to get affordable housing without supply. That can mean gentle density in some ways. In a sense, and I agree with some of the other comments, this is an iconic building. And I was very pleased to see the design and the architecture on this, because you can't say, okay, this is the same as the building down the street. And that's what I like to see in Vancouver. I like to see something a little bit different. You might love it, you might hate it, but you'll have some feeling about it. And I think that that's really important when it comes to architecture. I happen to think that I agree with Councillor Carr. I think it's stunning. That being said, I will certainly be supporting this project. And I'd also like to say that I feel that the public benefit strategy is very generous at $32 million. And my only comment on that is for some of the neighbors who may be losing their views, or the surrounding neighborhood that's going to be adjusting to the extra numbers of people, be it seniors, be it young people, be it children. I know that Councillor Ball had brought up a play space, and seniors have been mentioned many times. I understand that our capital planning process happens every few years, but it would be nice for people to be able to see how those benefits are going to be spent and how they're going to benefit them, and maybe that would help to alleviate and create more of a community as we see these applications come before council in the public hearing process. So that being said, I'm more than happy to support this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'm pleased to be seconding this. As others have said, I think this is really stunning. It's going to be an amazing addition to the West End, and of course it fits, as Mr. Malone said, exactly in the West End plan that so many worked on that for a couple of years. Obviously, the amenities are going to be crucial in the West End. The West End needs kind of a facelift in a way with our community center, libraries, and so on. And so this will be very helpful, useful. And as the director of the West End Seniors Network said, there's such a need for this kind of money to be put into seniors projects as well. So I think this is an absolute win-win. Councillor Jang was teasing me about maybe I could find a place to live way up on the top of there. And I thought, oh, that might kind of be nice too. Although I have a nice place now, so I'll probably stay where I am. But as far as, no, maybe not. So as far as though, you know, the views and so on of other people, this has been a situation in the West End for almost a century. I mean, it used to be single-family dwellings, and then all of a sudden apartment buildings went up here and went up there, and people's views have been blocked as the West End has changed rapidly and completely from a single-family area of only single-family housing to now primarily apartments, and obviously people's views have been blocked as each development went up. So that's a consequence of a growing city. It's a consequence of the West End. But I certainly would not want to go back to the West End being an area of just single-family dwellings. I think it's a far better neighborhood now, and a lot more people get to enjoy it than would have been the case if it was just left as a single-family dwelling. So I realize that there are going to be some people that have their view blocked, but that's part of living in a city, and living in a city that's changing, and in a part of a city where there is a lot of building that will go on to house more and more people, because it's an area of the city we've decided that we are going to really densify. So I'm just amazed at this architecture. I agree with Councillor Jang, having traveled a bit both to China and Japan. Some of the architecture there is just amazing, and it's great to see that that's coming here as well.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stevenson. I'll just add my very brief words of strong support for this. Once again, tonight it's been a great night for consensus and strong support for these projects coming forward, and this one's capping it all off. I think it's quite remarkable that a building of this magnitude is coming forward with so much support across the board, and that's testament to the work of the applicants and the staff team together. And so great job. It looks like it will be a beautiful addition to the downtown and West End. Brings a lot to the table. Appreciate the neighbors who have had input on this, and the changes made by the applicant team and staff's guidance around all that. I think that's made it possible for this to move through so smoothly compared to how some do, and I appreciate all that effort. So I will move us to a vote. Council can weigh in now. Councillor Stevenson, are you voting? Okay. We have, once again, unanimous support. So 8 votes in favor, and we have approved that rezoning at 1550 Alberni Street. Thank you, and congratulations to everyone who's worked hard on this. And we'll look forward to seeing that take shape in the time ahead. So we have concluded all 5 items here tonight at this public hearing, and we need a motion to adjourn. And seconded, and all those in favor, any opposed? That carries. This public hearing is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.